The dark space between the stars was quiet, but in that silence, something massive was moving. For 100 years, the Zerath Dominion had been preparing for a single goal: to take Earth. On distant moons and metal worlds, their soldiers trained day and night. They learned every possible way to conquer, to burn, to destroy. Their scientists built ships that could level cities with one strike. Their generals studied human history, believing that Earth's people were divided, emotional, and easy to crush. The Zerath believed that patience and discipline would give them victory, and for a century they planned every detail of the invasion. They practiced until their movements were perfect, their weapons flawless, and their hatred complete. When the time finally came, the stars above their capital glowed red as the High Commander stood before his vast army. His voice echoed through the fleet, deep and certain, promising glory. "Tomorrow," he declared, "we claim the cradle of chaos. Earth will burn, and the Dominion will rise forever." Cheers shook the cold, airless void, the sound of millions of alien voices united under one cause. For them, this was not just a war, it was destiny. Far away, light years from their gathering point, Earth remained unaware for a short while. The planet spun peacefully beneath its blue skies, its cities alive with people who had no idea that an enemy older and stronger than any before was coming for them. But not everyone was blind. On the moon's surface stood Fort Armstrong, Earth's oldest and most secure outpost. Inside its silver walls, alarms suddenly blared. The quiet hum of machinery turned into a desperate roar as long-range scanners picked up something impossible. Hundreds, maybe thousands of ships, crossing the void between Mars and Jupiter. Commander Elena Ruiz, a woman known for her calm even in crisis, stared at the data streaming across the monitors. Her heart sank as the reality formed before her eyes. The readings were clear. The Zerath were coming, and they were not a myth or a rumor this time. "They've been preparing for this," she said quietly, almost to herself. 100 years of planning, all for us. Within minutes, the alert spread across every channel. The Earth Defense Network, a system that had not been fully activated in decades, came alive in a storm of lights and signals. Orbital satellites adjusted their paths, AI defense programs reawakened, and from the cold depths beneath Antarctica, a sleeping giant stirred, the Atlas Core. It was humanity's greatest secret, a machine built to protect the world if the unthinkable ever happened. Across continents, soldiers received their orders. Engineers ran to their stations. Scientists rushed to prepare weapons once thought too dangerous to use. The world that once fought itself now moved as one. Humanity had been pushed to the edge before, by disasters, by wars, by fear, but it had always survived. Now, facing a threat from beyond the stars, every human heart burned with the same fire. They would not go quietly. As the first shadows of the Zerath fleet appeared near the outer edges of the solar system, telescopes and satellites captured the images and sent them back to Earth. For a moment, silence filled every command center, every control room, every home watching the breaking news. No one had ever seen a fleet that large. It looked like a wall of light swallowing the stars. Some people panicked, others prayed. But among the soldiers and leaders, a different feeling grew, not fear but resolve. They had faced extinction before, and they had learned that survival was more than strength. It was unity, courage, and the will to fight no matter the odds. Commander Ruiz looked out the window at the glowing curve of Earth below and made a silent promise. If the Zerath wanted war, then humanity would give them something they would never forget. The battle for Earth had begun, and this time, the invaders would learn what it truly meant to challenge the human spirit. The enemy came with the sunrise over Mars. The Zerath fleet appeared like a second dawn, their ships shining with a red glow that turned the cold dust of the planet into fire. To them, this was the moment they had waited for. 100 years of preparation had led to this invasion. Their vessels were vast and terrible, shaped like dark blades cutting through space. The smallest of them was bigger than any ship humanity had ever built. The people in the Martian colonies barely had time to send a signal before the first strike came. In one blinding instant, the colonies vanished in flames, their domes shattered, their skies filled with burning debris. The Zerath believed victory was already theirs. They sent a message to their command fleet, declaring Mars neutralized, the first step toward Earth complete. But their confidence would not last long. High above Earth, Commander Elena Ruiz stood inside the orbital command station, her face pale but steady as she watched the red markers on the screen multiply. "They've taken Mars," her aide whispered, but Ruiz's eyes were calm. "Then they've announced themselves," she replied. She pressed her hand to the console. "Phase 1, engage." At her command, the void around Earth came alive. From hidden stations behind the moon, from deep orbit and asteroid bases, thousands of human warships roared into motion. This was the Sol Vanguard, the pride of Earth's defense. Unlike the smooth, perfect lines of the Zerath fleet, the human ships were rough, built for endurance, not beauty. They were made of layered armor, recycled parts, and human stubbornness. They were ugly, powerful, and alive with purpose. As the first human squadrons engaged the enemy near Mars orbit, the dark emptiness of space exploded into chaos. Massive railguns fired chunks of metal faster than light, tearing holes through Zerath cruisers. EMP bursts erupted like lightning storms, disabling alien sensors. The Zerath, shocked by the resistance, tried to reorganize, but humanity had learned how to fight a stronger enemy, by fighting smart. Ruiz's voice echoed through every fleet channel. "Use the debris fields. Stay unpredictable." The Terran ships ducked into asteroid shadows, launching sneak attacks and disappearing again. Some used old satellites as decoys. Others dropped swarms of nanobots that ate through enemy armor. The Zerath expected a straightforward battle of strength. Instead, they found themselves facing chaos, human chaos, something they had never trained for. Still, the Zerath were not weak. Their numbers seemed endless. When one of their destroyers fell, 2 more took its place. They began adapting quickly, countering human tactics with ruthless precision. Entire Terran squadrons vanished in bursts of fire. The space between Mars and the asteroid belt became a graveyard of wreckage, floating silently in the cold dark. Every minute, more human ships were lost, and still Ruiz refused to pull back. "We hold them here," she ordered. "Earth is not their next stop." Her calm voice gave her people courage. Even when their shields failed and their ships cracked open, the crews fought to the last breath, refusing to let the Zerath advance. The battle raged for hours, and the solar system burned. By the end of the first hour, the stars themselves were hidden behind smoke and metal. But in that destruction, humanity's spirit shone brighter than ever. The Zerath, who thought of humans as fragile and foolish, began to realize their mistake. Humans fought not because they expected to win, but because they refused to lose. Even when outnumbered, outgunned, and on the edge of death, they struck back harder each time. The Zerath were soldiers trained by order. Humans were survivors driven by instinct. When the first Zerath general demanded a report, the answer came trembling. The humans, they fight like they have nothing left to lose. And in truth, that was what made them dangerous. The first hour of war ended not in Zerath triumph, but in grim silence, as both sides paused to count the cost. And somewhere aboard her command ship, Elena Ruiz looked at the growing storm and whispered, "That was only the beginning." The moon shook beneath a storm of fire as the Zerath flagship, a monstrous vessel named Oblivion's Spear, moved into lunar orbit. It was larger than any city on Earth, its hull black as night and lined with thousands of glowing cannons. With one command, it fired a single energy beam that carved through the lunar surface like a blade, melting rock into rivers of glass. The explosion lit up the dark side of the moon, and the shockwave ripped through the underground tunnels of Fort Armstrong, Earth's oldest and strongest lunar base. Inside, alarms screamed, walls cracked, and soldiers scrambled to hold their ground as dust and smoke filled the air. Commander Elena Ruiz's voice echoed through the chaos, calm but fierce, giving orders through the storm. "All units, prepare for evacuation. Get the civilians and technicians out first." The soldiers obeyed without hesitation, guiding hundreds toward the emergency transports. Outside, the stars burned with the reflection of explosions as alien ships filled the sky, blotting out the light of Earth. Amid the confusion, a group of human Marines stayed behind. They were led by Captain Mason Holt, a battle-hardened soldier with a scar running down his cheek and eyes that had seen too many wars. He refused to retreat while the enemy remained. "If they take the moon," he said over the radio, "Earth is next. We stop them here." His team, just 50 men and women, nodded without question. They had no illusions. This mission was suicide, but none of them cared. They loaded nuclear warheads onto old mining transports, turning industrial haulers into weapons. Holt grinned as he climbed into the cockpit of one. "These ships used to carry rocks. Today, they carry fire." With a final salute toward the base, they launched into the dark. The mining ships, slow and bulky, charged straight toward the Zerath fleet. The aliens did not even fire at first, thinking it was debris or escape craft. Then the transports lit up, their engines glowing white as they accelerated far beyond safety limits. The Zerath realized too late what was coming. One by one, the mining ships detonated, each carrying the explosive power of 1,000 bombs. The first explosion tore apart 3 destroyers. The second caused a chain reaction across their formation, and for a few glorious seconds, space itself seemed to catch fire. The shockwaves rippled through the fleet, throwing ships out of position and breaking their perfect order. Holt's final transmission came through the static, his voice steady and proud. "For Earth. See you in the next one." His signal vanished in the blinding flash of his own detonation. Back at Fort Armstrong, the tremors stopped. The surviving officers stared at their monitors in disbelief as parts of the Zerath fleet fell silent. Commander Ruiz wiped the dust from her face, her throat tight with emotion. She knew what had happened, and who had done it. "He bought us 10 minutes, she whispered. 10 minutes that might save billions. Around her, soldiers cheered, their voices echoing through the damaged base. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was hope. Outside, the wreckage of alien ships drifted across the lunar horizon like broken giants. The Zerath pulled back, reorganizing, furious that such a small resistance had dared to wound them. But that wound had done more than damage their fleet. It had shaken their pride. For the first time in 100 years, the Zerath doubted themselves. On Earth, the world watched the explosions on live feeds, millions of eyes staring up at the burning moon. The people wept and cheered all at once, realizing that their defenders were not fighting for survival alone. They were fighting for every life below. Commander Ruiz stood at the observation deck, watching the smoke rise from the lunar surface. "He held the line," she said quietly. "Now it's our turn." The war had only just begun, but that day, among the ashes of the moon, humanity proved that courage could shine even brighter than the stars. Deep beneath the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, something ancient and powerful began to wake. The Atlas core, humanity's most secret creation, had slept for decades, a massive machine buried under ice and rock, built to defend Earth if all else failed. It wasn't just a computer. It was an intelligence born from the minds of Earth's brightest scientists, connected through quantum networks and enhanced with alien technology salvaged from forgotten wars. As the Zerath fleet pushed closer, its systems hummed to life, spreading energy through enormous tunnels carved deep into the planet's crust. Commander Elena Ruiz stood in the control chamber, her hand resting on the activation console. Around her, engineers and officers watched in tense silence as the floor shook. "Atlas," she said clearly, "it's time." A soft mechanical voice filled the room, calm, deep, and strangely human. "Acknowledged, Commander Ruiz. Defense protocols initiating." Welcome back to the dawn. The world outside trembled as the Atlas core awakened fully. Giant vaults opened across the oceans, mountains, and deserts, releasing squadrons of Solaris drones, sleek, silver orbs that glowed with golden light. They rose silently into the sky, thousands of them forming shining rivers that curved across the atmosphere. The Zerath, unaware of what was happening below, continued their march toward Earth. Their commanders laughed at the desperate resistance they expected to find. But when their sensors detected the sudden surge of energy from the planet, the laughter stopped. Ruiz stood before a large holographic display showing the alien fleet closing in. "Target locked," said Atlas. "Shall I begin Protocol Solaris?" Ruiz nodded once. "Do it!" In an instant, the Solaris drones scattered into the void. They moved faster than light, slipping through enemy shields as if the barriers didn't exist. When the first drone reached its target, it expanded into a sphere of brilliant energy. a gravitational implosion that twisted space itself. The Zerath ships caught inside were torn apart from within, their metal bending and breaking before vanishing into dust. The remaining drones followed, detonating in precise formation. The Zerath fleet, once a perfect wall of power, was thrown into chaos. Their formations broke, their communications failed, and panic spread like wildfire. From her station, Ruiz watched the destruction unfold with both awe and sadness. "It's beautiful," one officer whispered. "It's war," Ruiz replied. But even as their ships were ripped apart, the Zerath refused to retreat. The High Commander himself appeared on the communication screens of his fleet, his cold eyes burning with fury. "Forward!" he shouted. "They are insects with stolen power. Crush them!" His command sent the remaining Zerath ships diving toward Earth. They moved with desperate speed, firing everything they had. The skies above the planet turned red as plasma fire rained down, shaking cities and burning through orbiting satellites. Ruiz quickly ordered new defense lines to form. "Atlas, prepare the global shield grid," she commanded. "Already in progress," the AI responded. Across the planet, huge emitters hidden in mountains and under oceans powered up, forming an invisible shield that shimmered faintly in the sky. Still, the Zerath pushed harder. They were determined to reach the surface no matter the cost. The Atlas Core's energy readings climbed dangerously high as it fought to maintain the barrier. Ruiz knew that if the system overloaded, it could destroy itself, but she didn't hesitate. "Hold the line," she said softly. "Whatever it takes." The AI's voice replied, steady and loyal. "Humanity's line will not break." One final surge of power rippled across the sky, and the remaining Solaris drones unleashed their last strike. Thousands of beams of golden light cut through the darkness, each one finding its mark. The Zerath formation shattered completely. Ships exploded in chains of light, their wreckage falling like burning stars. When the echoes faded, space around Earth was filled with silent debris. The Zerath were wounded but not finished. The High Commander's flagship still burned bright, heading straight for the planet. Ruiz stared at the incoming threat. "He's coming for us," she said. Atlas's response was calm but certain. "Then we meet him head on." The next phase of the war was about to begin, and humanity was ready. Beneath the calm blue glow of Earth's shield, the world prepared for its final stand, and the Atlas Core, the heart of humanity's defense, pulsed with the fire of a planet that refused to die. The final stage of the war began when the Zerath fleet, broken but not defeated, charged straight toward Earth. Space burned red as their ships tore through the last line of human defenses, desperate to reach the planet before the Atlas Core could strike again. The stars vanished behind walls of fire and metal. Commander Elena Ruiz stood in the command center, her face illuminated by flashing warning lights, the air thick with the sound of alarms. "All units prepare for planetary defense," she ordered. "We hold here, or we lose everything." Across the continents, bunkers opened, silos unlocked, and cities powered down their grids to divert every ounce of energy to the global shield. The people of Earth watched from windows and rooftops as the night sky filled with streaks of burning light, alien ships entering the atmosphere like falling stars. Humanity had no time left to hide. This was the moment they had been preparing for since the war began. The Zerath descended in waves. Their plasma cannons cut through the upper layers of the atmosphere, lighting the clouds on fire. From the ground, it looked like the heavens themselves were bleeding. Earth's defenses answered instantly. Gigantic railguns hidden in deserts and mountain ranges opened fire, their shots traveling so fast they left glowing trails behind them. Orbital cannons and satellite lasers joined the counterattack, linking through the Atlas Core's network to create one massive shield of light. From the sky to the sea, the planet roared in defiance. The alien ships tried to form a new attack line, but the Atlas Core was faster. "Activate Protocol Dawn," Ruiz commanded. The AI's voice came through the speakers, calm and unshaken. Protocol Dawn initiated. Solar arrays aligning now. High above Earth, dozens of giant solar mirrors that had floated unnoticed for years began to move into formation. They were part of an ancient project once meant to gather clean energy. Now they were weapons. The mirrors locked into place, reflecting sunlight into focused plasma beams. When the first beam hit, the result was devastating. The air itself caught fire as the focused light sliced through Zerath ships like paper. The alien fleet was suddenly caught in a storm of pure energy. Ships melted, engines failed, and explosions bloomed across the sky. The oceans reflected the light, turning day into blinding white. For the Zerath, who had trained 100 years to destroy humanity, it was a nightmare they had never imagined. Their perfect order collapsed under the storm of chaos and heat. But the Zerath High Commander refused to retreat. His rage echoed through the fleet as he screamed his final order, "If we fall, we take their world with us." From his flagship, Oblivion's Spear, he launched a single weapon, a world-killer missile, a sphere of dark energy large enough to shatter continents. Its path cut through the smoke and light, heading straight for Earth's surface. The human defense grid targeted it, but it moved too fast. Ruiz saw it on the screen and knew there was only one option left. "All ships," she called. "Focus everything on that warhead." The shot struck it, slowing it but not stopping it. Then a new voice came through the comms. Captain Aaron Lee, commander of the Sol Vanguard flagship Valiant. His voice was calm, determined. "We'll take care of it, Commander." Ruiz's eyes widened. "Aaron, don't—" But it was too late. The Valiant turned toward the missile, engines burning at full power. The ship's damaged hull glowed as it raced straight into the weapon's path. The crew knew there would be no return, yet none of them hesitated. Ruiz watched through the viewport, her chest tight as the Valiant met the world killer head-on. For one moment, everything went silent. Then the sky exploded. The collision unleashed a shockwave that spread across the planet's upper atmosphere, brighter than the sun itself. The Zerath fleet was thrown apart by the blast, their remaining ships shredded by debris and plasma fire. The missile was gone. The Valiant was gone. The Zerath invasion, the war a century in the making, ended in 12 minutes. When the light faded, silence fell over Earth. The burning fragments of alien ships rained down like shooting stars, falling harmlessly into the oceans. The once mighty Zerath Dominion had been destroyed, not by superior strength, but by human courage and sacrifice. Commander Ruiz stood motionless, tears glimmering in her eyes as the final reports came in. "The skies are clear," an officer said softly. Ruiz looked out at the blue horizon, her voice steady despite the pain. "They trained for 100 years, she whispered. "But we finished it before lunch. Humanity had won, and the world would never forget the price of that victory." The morning after the war was quiet. The skies that had burned with fire and lightning were now calm and blue, streaked only with the trails of falling debris from the shattered Zerath fleet. All across the world, people stepped outside for the first time in days, staring up in disbelief at the peaceful heavens. The alien armada that had trained for 100 years was gone, their ships now nothing more than silent wreckage orbiting the Earth like broken stars. In space, the command center floated above the wounded planet, its hull scarred but still standing. Inside, Commander Elena Ruiz sat at her post, exhausted but unbroken. Around her, the remaining officers were quiet, their eyes filled with a mix of grief and pride. The battle was over, but the cost was heavy. Half of the Sol Vanguard was gone. Entire cities lay in ruins. Heroes like Captain Aaron Lee and Captain Holt had given everything. Yet Earth still turned beneath them, alive and free. Ruiz took a slow breath, looking down at the planet she had sworn to protect. "We're still here," she whispered. As news spread, the world wept and cheered together. In the streets, people hugged strangers, tears streaming down faces lit by the glow of dawn. Families reunited in the rubble, holding on to what remained. Soldiers stood at attention in silence, mourning the fallen and saluting the sky. Across continents, nations that once fought each other now shared supplies and rebuilt side by side. The victory was not just military. It was human. For the first time in centuries, humanity was truly united, not by fear, but by gratitude. They had faced extinction and endured. The Zerath had called them chaotic and weak, but in the end, it was that chaos, that unstoppable will to survive, that had saved them. In orbit, Ruiz opened a global transmission. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with quiet strength. "This is Commander Elena Ruiz of the Earth Defense Network," she began. 100 years of training, planning, and hatred led the Zerath here. They believed we would break, but we didn't. We endured, we fought, and we stood together. They trained for a century to invade Earth, and we ended it before lunch. Around the world, her words echoed from speakers and screens, bringing both laughter and tears. In the ruins of cities and the safety of bunkers, people listened to her voice and realized they had witnessed the impossible. Humanity had defeated an empire that had never lost a war. High above, in the wreckage of the Zarath fleet, one alien vessel still flickered with life. Inside, a wounded officer crawled to a console, recording his final message. His breathing was shallow, his voice trembling as he spoke into the static. "They are not what we thought," he rasped. "We called them primitive, emotional, unorganized. But they are monsters made of will. Do not return to Earth. It is not a world to conquer. It is a world that fights back." The message was sent into the void before the ship finally went dark, leaving behind only silence. Deep beneath Antarctica, the Atlas core also rested. Its systems powered down one by one, cooling the energy that had saved the planet. Yet before going silent, the AI spoke one last time to Ruiz through the communication link. "The Dominion has fallen," it said softly. "But others will come." "They always do," Ruiz nodded, her eyes hard but hopeful. "Then we'll be ready," she replied. "We always are." As the day faded into night, the world began to heal. The smoke cleared, the oceans calmed, and from the ashes of destruction rose a new age of unity. The human spirit, battered but unbroken, shone brighter than ever. Humanity had looked into the face of extinction and refused to blink. The Zarath had trained for 100 years to invade Earth, but in only 12 minutes they learned what it truly meant to face humankind. And as the stars glimmered over a scarred but living world, it was clear that the story of Earth was far from over. Humanity had survived once more, and in their survival they had proven that no force in the universe could ever extinguish the fire of the human heart.